We're joined now by one of the smartest people we know, Eric Eggers from the Government Accountability Institute. He also is fantastic on that Drill Down podcast with Peter Schweizer. Eric, welcome back. How are you? And I take it you've seen the video of this poor girl, right?
It's tragic. It's devastating, and it's just yet another reminder of the bizarre and broken way in which the left has decided to embrace crime because Donald Trump is trying his best to fight it. Like, what's wrong with us as a country when you can't just stand up and say common sense things like criminals should be arrested? And of course you can arrest your way out of more crime because the people that commit the crimes then aren't on the streets to commit them. It's a common sense thing, and thank God the White House is speaking up about it.
I love it. You know, I just saw another snippet of the video. This is after the woman is stabbed. And, you know, sometimes when you're stabbed, people don't even know they were stabbed. It feels like they were punched very, very hard. I've seen this before. When he walks away from her, she's conscious. She's crying. Her legs are up, but you don't. I see a blotch of blood, what looks like blood on her pants, but you know, it's very grim, the situation. But she is alive, and she knows exactly what it. Well, she doesn't know she was stabbed potentially. You got to see this. I feel like this is I hate the word, a watershed moment. Is this a watershed moment?
I think it's a watershed season because I think it's, you know, when you're talking about, this isn't just this activity. It's this activity in the context of the larger conversation we're having about taking crime seriously. You've got the mayor of Chicago saying we don't want the National Guard to come in and make our streets safer, even though that's exactly what they did when they hosted the DNC last year. You've got the mayor of Washington, D.C., who's now seen the benefits of having additional law enforcement, saying, look, we're glad that, quite honestly, to have crime down. You hear stories about how much nicer it is in Washington, D.C. now when you choose to actually take crime seriously. But because you have protected populations who are the ones that are committing the crimes and you're taught to look the other way, as the New Yorkers have done on the subway for too long, when people like Daniel Penny actually stand up and do something about it, and then they're the ones perversely charged with a crime, like that's the conversation that Donald Trump and his administration are changing. So I think that's why, like, and this just kind of takes place in the midst of that conversation. Like, that's gross. It's murder, and people are realizing, like, why aren't we allowed to stand up and just call this out for what it is? And so I think that's the season this is occurring, and just kind of crystallizes all the things that are wrong with society that have led to a moment like that.
Do me a favor, listen to this. And, you know, look, she was muttering to himself, I got the white lady, I got the white lady, I got the white girl, actually. And I wonder where somebody might get such a racist inclination to do something horrible to someone based on the color of their skin. And I realized, Eric, they might just get it from watching television. Listen to this. This is mainstream media. Some breathtakingly stupid statements, but sponsored by major corporate America. Cut 12, please. Cut 12.
It's a typical case of a white womaning, right? So we see the disrespect, we see the privilege.
White women have taken an active role in the maintenance of white supremacy.
When you're a white woman and you're a Republican, there's just certain stuff culturally that you don't know jack bleep about.
My advice to white women is mind your own goddamn business.
So I have this theory. I mean, this stuff is rampant. But this Karen thing really took off after 2016 to punish white women for voting for Donald Trump. And the idea that if you step out of line and you happen to be a white woman, you could be totally canceled. Oh, by the way, for nothing. And I feel like this is, we're seeing the result of that kind of propaganda campaign. You think I'm crazy?
No, I don't think you're crazy. I actually think it's the marriage of both. I think it's the marriage of that, and that's a great insight. And it's the marriage of a few different strains. It's the summer of 2020 in which we were taught that black victimhood was to be elevated at the expense of respect for law and order, right? I mean, cops became the bad people, and drug addict criminals like George Floyd were the people that we have mayors like kneeling and weeping at their funerals. And then, so because of that, right, then we were told that, this is the summer 2020. You're not allowed to go outside, except for the dang CDC then comes out and says, well, if you're experiencing racism is actually much worse than anything else, including COVID. So go do your thing. And so people did. And there was all kinds of destruction and property crime and everything else, but it was rationalized and justified because of the larger system of white oppression. And then, so since that that's an impossible thing to fix. So then that sense of entitlement and justification never goes away. And I think that's what you see kind of fueling the mentality of this person who committed this heinous act. And then, by the way, you've got the fact that, like, in these cities, we actually did a podcast on the Trump D.C. national troops, and we talked about the most crime-ridden cities in the country. Charlotte, by the way, is in, I think, the top 10. So, and they're all, fun fact, guess which political party runs them all? It's not Republicans. So, I mean, this is unfortunately, like, it was Charlotte this time. It could have been Nashville. It could have been Portland. It could have been Chicago. It could have been Houston. So you have all these unfortunate strains, and they've led to this watershed moment, as you correctly articulated, and people are like, look, we got to do something about it. And so I think, ironically, Washington, D.C. is the first, but will not be the last city in which I think steps are taken to make sure crime is taken much more seriously.
So let's face it, there seems to be well, we just talked about it, but there's a racial component to a lot of this violence, and it's perpetuated, I think, certainly by the Biden administration. They were yelling and screaming about how white supremacy was the number one national security threat to America, which was false, which is a lie. But they fueled racial hatred. I feel like fixing that, I actually feel like it's fixable, but people have to start being honest about the problem. And, I think the problem is one of the main problems that gets totally overlooked because it's too touchy to talk about is absentee fathers in the black community. I hate saying black community, by the way. I hate saying white community as if it's a community, but whatever. If you look at the numbers, there's a crisis of fatherhood in the black community. And Barack Obama went there once and he didn't do it again because Jesse Jackson threatened to cut his scrotum off. So how does the society start addressing this? Because I feel like if we really, really, really said it out loud, I don't know. But if you can't say it out loud, you ain't going to fix it.
Well, that's exactly right. And by the way, not being able to say stuff out loud is exactly what the Obama presidency did to America, because we were scolded and lectured and sneered at and told that for the first, Michelle Obama said, I've never been able to be proud of my country until my husband was elected, right? As if everything else was meant to be some sense of shame because of unfortunate aspects of slavery. It's a real thing. I mean, it's a very interesting culture dynamic, and it's very personal to me, Greg. I don't know that we've talked about this. I know we've talked about me being a foster and adoptive parent, but like as an adoptive parent, I have a child who's adopted from foster care who happens to be black. My daughter's black, and and she's going to have a tough time, or she has to kind of figure out what it looks like, because she doesn't just have a white dad. She's got like a white conservative podcast dad, So it's like, and so we have to have real conversations about this stuff. And she's seen for the first time, hey, like, not everything's the same. So there isn't it's not uniform, but there are places where clearly she feels safer than others. And, there are good people that are in the black community. And I think you just have to be able to stand up and say facts and just look, yeah, there is an absentee fatherhood problem, disproportionately so, in these African-American communities. By the way, that's saying hard facts is something we should be able to do on the crime thing too. Like the mayor of Chicago, by not taking crime seriously, he's overseen disproportionate crime, violent crime, and murder happen to blacks in the city of Chicago. Like the stats bear that out. But those are the things people don't want to say because they don't want to be called racist. So to answer your question, step one is just be able to speak truth and not worry about how it's going to come off. And just as long as you're speaking truth and leading with facts, that's the only way to have an honest conversation.
Why is there never any turnover in terms of political leadership in blue cities? Hardly ever. Once in a blue moon, once every 50 years, a Republican will take over. Happened twice in New York City with Mike Bloomberg and Rudy Giuliani. A half century prior to that, it was John Lindsay, who, was his own weird story, actually. But it never happens. I mean, I don't know of it happening. Do you? I mean, I'm sure it has, but the people who are being most affected by these policies seem to sign up for more of those policies that have failed them.
Well, I do think that's changing, because I think, look, if you saw the shift take place in the presidential election in 2024, and something like 3,000 counties, voted more for Trump than they had previously, it is, I think, by and large, because people see the failure of the quality in these cities that are run by Democrats. And so people don't want that. And people why? What has happened to our cities? Why are our cities so littered with homelessness and crime? And you see, I think, Charlie Kirk and others are putting pictures of major cities across the rest of the world, and they're nice, and there's lots of fun spaces and communities that you can enjoy it. And it's because they just have very different attitudes about stuff, and they take certain things very seriously. So I do think that we're beginning to have the conversation about what cannot be tolerated, and I think that is and that showed up. I think that was one of the driving factors in the political activity in November last year. Yeah,
I know President Trump made gains, but I feel like he's an outlier. There will never be a communicator like him, is in your face, and the choice will never be as so stark potentially. So, and let's face it, he didn't win. I mean, he didn't win these blue cities. He may have done better, but he still lost, by a landslide. Went from 20%, 10% to 30%, 35%. That's still known as a landslide defeat. So I don't know. There's a lot of weird things going on, and quite frankly, some of these things, I still feel a little uncomfortable saying about. Even though we got a lot of latitude these days. It gets you go into uncharted territory in terms of public dialogue. You know what I mean? So I don't know, and I don't know. I don't know, man. All right, so hey, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd say you may not know, but I do think that actually is the greatest service that the Trump administration is providing to us these days. Is they are saying, I mean, think about the clip you just played, right? It took 3 weeks for anybody to talk about this thing in Charlotte. And then the Free Press finally reported on it, but it still, I don't believe, has been on any mainstream news outlet because the image of a black man murdering a white woman is somehow politically incorrect, even though it's just the news. So I think that the Trump administration is doing the country a service by taking up space and pushing the boundary of what we should be able to talk about. And I think that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. But you know what? We also have this problem with conservative media that we become full-time media critics. Oh, my gosh, I can't believe CNN didn't report this, or I can't believe CNN reported this that way. And half of Fox News is Jesse Waters and the others, screaming about something stupid CNN did instead of telling the story from the get-go. So much work to be done. And Eric Eggers, we're so pleased you're involved every step of the way. Check out the Drill Down podcast. And Eric, it's always great to talk to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And by the way, our current episode, which we just recorded today, is literally about the black community and how it's negatively impacted by the predatory gambling that professional sports leagues like the NFL help sell to people. So, we love to investigate and report on stuff that no one else is talking about. Greg, appreciate the time you give me.
I like that. Yeah, I ripped on the NFL last week. I am personally boycotting them, all right? They have been so exploitive and virtuous, virtue signaling, which is fake virtue. And I didn't know that about the gambling sites. Wow. All right. Thank you, pal. We'll be right back.